I don't think that I have ever felt quite this way after watching any kind of championship game, Stugotz, where the numbers mathematically, empirically make it so that this UConn team is one of the best we've ever seen. In one-game sample sizes, they never play a close game. They win by an average margin of victory larger than anyone in the history of the tournament, 22.5 points a game. And what I am telling you and the audience stubbornly is I refuse to remember this as one of the best teams to ever play college basketball, even though they're insisting upon it. They absolutely deserve the credit, because I'll tell you why, Stugotz. I have been so contaminated by the need for my games to be entertaining and to have storylines, not even necessarily pros, because that's one thing, Stugotz. You know when you're watching a team that has 4 pros on it. The last team to go back-to-back, the University of Florida, you knew you were watching pros, that those guys, Horford and Joakim Noah, that you knew you were watching pros.
They had 3 lottery picks on that team. So, yes, I understand what you're saying.
Corey Brewer was on that team, too. And while you watched them, you knew it. And the whole thing is a little bit diluted, right? Because it's so many one-and-dones. But I think I'm doing something unfair. That's not the correct way to celebrate a championship. But because it's such a foregone conclusion, because we've been talking for 2 years about, yeah, we know Dan Hurley is great. Jessica described Dan Hurley's vibe as rancid.
I mean, he's got weird vibes. Like, not a nice guy.
Aggressive
vibes.
energy.
He's crazy.
I have told you that Adrian Wojnarowski wrote about his high school exploits in New Jersey. Dan Hurley has always been a crazy, motivating general of I am excellent at coaching, and I will go into a high school gym and make my team, through sheer force of rage, better than your team.
Sounds like Jersey.
I mean, don't stare down Edey. That last night, I mean, I said it yesterday. Just his vibe is weird. He's staring down the player. It's like, dude, I get it. You're intense, but just back off a little.
I think Chris is the one who tainted my opinion by saying he wanted Dan Hurley to get served some humble pie yesterday. And then I was watching the game with a little lens of like, where's Chris coming from? And immediately was like, yeah, kind of just weird energy from this guy.
I don't think we're doing this correctly after a team wins a championship back-to-back for the first time in 17 years.
I actually think that you are. It's a great take. It's a hot take because, Dan, this team is vastly different than last year's team. So you're right about that Florida team. Those guys came back. They did it again. They didn't go to the NBA. Eventually they did. This is an entirely different team.
I don't feel good about myself for taking a championship and feeling that way about it. It feels disrespectful, but I can't control the way that I feel. And I felt like the championship in that sport for UConn was a foregone conclusion, and they made it a foregone conclusion, and yet I'm not extending them the respect. Never thought they were going to lose any of the games, were giant favorites in all the games, didn't play any close games, and I'm not extending them the respect that I should.
You control that, I mean.
I know, but I can't control the way that I feel.
Right, well.
Greg, what are you doing?
I'm a little disconcerted because I'm wearing my solar eclipse glasses. And
Eclipse.
In Eclipse, and when you're not looking at the sun, it's pitch black. So I'm like a blind man right now. But to Dan's point, they're not even a consensus pick going into next season to win again. Duke is in most polls I've seen.
They're co-favorites, UConn and Duke.
Okay.
They're back-to-back champions, hard stop.
Right. I think the South Carolina women are much better positioned to be a dynasty than UConn.
But what about what happened last night? Because plenty of people are doing that to women's basketball today and yesterday. It was nice numbers. Hey, 19 million. But they're not going to do it again next year. Like, why are we doing that? I'm talking about what just happened. Why are you talking about next year?
Okay. Listen, Purdue's a flawed team. Okay, it was a boring game. Edey's a great player. I don't know that anybody else on that team is a great player. They have no bench. Their entire bench scored 2 points last night. Everybody is overworked because they have no bench. They ran out of gas. UConn is exceptional.
Yeah,
UConn is exceptional, but I did not think Purdue was a really great final.
But Dan touted the margin of victory. It's absurd to say this. Their closest game in the last 2 years was the Final Four game against Miami, and Miami got blown out in that game. That was a boat race.
You're proud of that, aren't you?
I mean, at this point, I want to hang a banner, but for whatever
Jeremy
reason,
just cashed
we
the
came the
under
closest.
on minutes until Mike brought up the Miami
I texted
UConn
Jess
game.
before the show, and I said, how soon is – I set the over-under at 4.5 minutes before Mike made UConn's win about Miami.
I'm honestly not trying to put us over because we got creamed in that game, and that was a game that was watched by a few people. And for that to be the toughest test in the last 2 years says way more about UConn. But they got blue blood prestige. They've won many national titles in our lifetimes, or they've been in the conversation for most, if not all, of my life. And yet a team goes back-to-back in an era where it's especially hard to do that. I would like to push back some on the 1-1 because that's changing a little bit. You still got COVID guys hanging around. You got guys in their mid-20s playing in this. But the last 2 years of the tournament has been a total flat track for this Connecticut team, and I could not be more bored by it.
The reason I'm saying the one-and-done thing is that's one of the reasons. When I think of overwhelming pro talent, I think of Kentucky, and I think of Kentucky being undone by one-and-done, that they can't go deeper in the tournament with teams that I'm more likely to look at and say that's one of the best teams that I have ever seen.
He should have won more. You're starting to come around.
Well, Greg Cody has done something here I don't think is fair. You go back-to-back championships, you're almost immediately a dynasty. Like, you win them back-to-back for the first time in 17 years, and that almost just about cements you as a dynasty. And what you're doing –
Dan, they have 6 since 1999. They have 6 championships since 1999 with 3 different coaches. I mean, only Alabama football, the Lakers, and the Patriots have won 6 championships since 1999. UConn is one of those
Stugotz,
teams.
you cannot tell the history of college basketball, men's and women's, without going through Storrs, Connecticut.
Correct.
Like, they don't have any preordained right to be that good at men and women's basketball, and they are that good. But the other thing I want to push back on Greg Cody when he talks about Purdue that I don't think he's allowed to do, you can't go no bench on me when Purdue's got the best player in the sport. When they've got the player of the year in the sport, you can tell me it's a flawed team, but they've got a guy who even in that game almost went for 40 because he's an unstoppable force.
I know, but so did Iowa the day before.
Boom.
Both of these finals were very parallel. Iowa had the best player in that game, and South Carolina had the best team by far. Iowa's bench scored 0. They were outscored 37-0. And if you don't think that matters, it does. Iowa had 3 players play all 40 minutes. South Carolina had 2 players play 30 minutes. Iowa was gassed at the end while Don Staley was raising the championship trophy with about 3 minutes left.
You're much better when you take the glasses off and you can see.
Good stuff.
You're
But
much
it's
better
the
when you
UConn
can
run
see.
isn't just about the final.
that.
They've been playing deep teams too. There's all sorts of different roster constructions, and it hasn't mattered.
I know,
but they're a hot knife going through butter.
Right, but when it comes to the final, both Purdue and Iowa proved to be very flawed teams with one great player, but not necessarily a great team. That's not taken away from UConn. I'm just saying last night was a big disappointment to me because it was not a game. It was chalked the entire way from the beginning of the game. I'm not a betting man. Sorry, DraftKings. But UConn would have been an easy bet for me to cover 6.5. Easy bet.
Okay, that's well said today after the game.
I'm not kidding. Listen, I read these things like a book, okay?
Right, afterwards.
Look,
yes.
no, my wife will vouch for this. When Iowa jumped out to a 10-0 lead,
Right.
and she's a fangirl, and she's giving off it's all Iowa today vibe.
You said South Carolina was better.
I said South Carolina's going to win by
Yeah,
10.
yeah.
Okay.
And you
I did
can-
the same
I
thing.
mean,
That's
what
right.
are we doing?
PTI.
I'm
so
just
what we're
telling
doing is
What are we
PTI.
doing?
Ask his wife.
I'm telling
No,
the
Just an
truth.
old guy saying that he
but
had it.
At least,
right.
at least on Pardon the Interruption, you could go back to the previous day's show and see that they did indeed say it. The show that Greg Cody is doing is Ask My Wife.
Can I do a PTI
I mean,
for
I
a
said
second?
it on the Greg Cody Show podcast as well.
The
It's
reason
a matter of history.
why it's so disappointing is because no one stayed awake for the ending. It's just as late. It's just late. Can we just all admit on
Very
the East
late.
Coast,
Very
we didn't
late.
stay awake to the ending,
Yes.
so it feels a little deflating.
I was happy it was a blowout.
Now, the 9 to 9:20 time, that was the longest 20 minutes of my life. I mean, start the
Thank
game.
you.
Yeah.
And it's
Jesus.
different than I saw some people like, well, the game doesn't end any later than, Monday Night Football or Sunday Night Football. And it's like, yeah, but it starts so much later that I have nothing to do between 8 o'clock Eastern and 9:20 other than get tired.
Right. And 9:20 doesn't even mean 9:20. 9:20 means 9:34 or something. They never start on time. If I go to a concert that says 8 p.m. on the ticket, I want that drum beating at 8 p.m. I don't want to wait 35 minutes to see the opening act. If you want to start at 9:20, lift the ball into the air at 9:20 sharp.
Imagine if New Year's Eve sometimes is celebrated at 12:07 or 12:11,
Ridiculous.
depending on what time the year decided to show up. Insane.
Nailed it. Nailed the example, Billy. Well done.
If Purdue had a bigger drum, they would have won.
Ron Magill joins us now from a new setting, different than the usual office that he joins us from. He's wearing some of the sharper clothes that he has purchased with money embezzled from the endowment that you give so generously.
Allegedly.
It is the only charity we're involved with. Ron Magill is perpetually working without bureaucracy to help the animals, and if you want to do so, his endowment, his substantive endowment, is very easy to give to, and we urge you to do so. You were flown to New York, as you often are, to Good Morning America, and I believe they were asking you how it is that animals would react to the eclipse. How often do you fly up for in-person Good Morning America visits with animal news? How often have you done that over the years?
Over the years, a handful of times they fly me up. Now everything's pretty much Zoom. I mean, I'm on Zoom several times a year. I was surprised they wanted to fly me up for this thing, but they said, no, we want you in studio. So flew up in studio. I mean, these folks will drop a lot of money to fly me up there, put me up in a hotel, give me a limousine, and 2 minutes on the air. It's amazing to me.
A limousine?
Yeah, it was a limo. The limo picks me up at the airport. I have a driver available to me the whole time with a nice, I didn't even know Volvo made limos. You know there's a Volvo limo?
I did not put it on the poll, Juju.
Wow.
Did you know that Volvo made limos? Yeah. Does anyone treat you as well in television as Good Morning America does? An old-style morning television show. Back when those things had all the money in the world, and Good Morning America still does have all the money in the world.
They treat me pretty well. Univision's also very good to me. Telemundo, they're all very good to me. But as far as, flying me up to these locations, Good Morning America is certainly the top of the game.
Do you have any demands?
I don't have any demands.
What's in your green room?
Big mistake.
Yeah.
I mean,
no, they put me in the green room. I shared the green room today or yesterday with Ray. They have a new mascot now. He's called Ray. He's a big sunshine, really nice guy. And I got to talk to him. I didn't realize he's good friends with, the original Bernie, Wes Lockhart, the original Billy, John Ruth. All these guys are really.
You're talking about the mascots, the local mascots here, Billy the Marlin, Bernie the mascot. Right. So were you sitting in a green room with someone dressed as the sun?
Yeah. I took a picture with him. I'll send it to you guys.
Is it hard to sit when you're wearing a costume of the sun? I imagine that it's circular.
Yeah, it's circular, and the guy's really good at it. I mean, he doesn't put the head on until the last minute, but he's really good at it, and a great guy. That takes a very special personality to wear those outfits.
Ron, flying up on airplanes, taking limousines to talk about the environment makes me wonder which animals are most endangered of being extinct because of your carbon footprint.
Good question.
Oh, Billy.
We'll answer it.
Oh, refuse to answer.
I don't know. I mean, it is contributing to the carbon footprint. I will say that, but hopefully the message that I'm getting across and trying to get people to understand little animals helps them in everyday things. What you purchase.
Why are you answering his question? Like he can't
we badgered him.
He's had a hard time the first hour of this show hiding the laughter of the chaos he's trying to cause behind a hand.
I got to credit Billy. It's a legitimate question. I wish I could go up on an electric airplane. I wish I could, I don't eat fancy dinners. I don't try to, I don't buy bottled water. I try not to stay away from plastics. I try my best in other ways. But for now, the only way to get there is on a plane.
It's great, Billy.
And in all fairness, the Volvo limo probably doesn't take as much gas as, the Lincolns and the Cadillacs.
Ron, at any point in the studio, was there an eclipse of the sun mascot?
Oh, for the love of God. Go sit in the penalty box.
No, I'm just curious.
Go sit.
Another question he didn't answer.
There he is. That's right. He's got him. That's right.
2 minutes for an eclipse joke.
You're going to miss out on the great question I had for Ron.
That's too bad.
Bonnie Raitt was interviewed about her song, Eclipse of the Sun.
Can you tell me what it is that your most interesting observations were about how the animals react to the eclipse? Was this worth the amount of money that Good Morning America spent to have your insight in studio?
Well, like I told them, most animals don't react at all. And the reaction really is minimal when you see it. You know, the way I try to explain it, it's like a short-term jet lag for them. You know, if you ever go on a plane, you fly on the other side of the world, and your body clock tells you it's supposed to be 2 o'clock in the morning, or let's say 3 o'clock in the morning, and then you get out of the plane, there's bright sunshine, your body's a little out of whack. So what it does to some animals, it confuses them a little bit, but it's not something like, it's not this apocalypse, like as soon as the total eclipse, all the bats come flying out of the cave, you know, and all the nocturnal animals start flying. No, it's not what happens. And there's just not a lot of data. You got to understand this is a very infrequent occurrence. When it happens, it's just a few minutes. People say, oh, you know, I saw the tortoises mating during the eclipse, so the eclipse must have made them mate. But they failed to say, well, yeah, 2 hours before they were mating and 3 hours after they were mating too. So it might just be coincidence. It's hard to get that data to say it was the eclipse that caused this. Now, having said that, I've seen during an eclipse where birds will stop flying. They'll go down and they'll roost in the trees, and they kind of become quiet. You know, I have seen on a total eclipse where all of a sudden, if you're in a wooded area, you'll start hearing crickets start calling. You'll see fireflies will actually start illuminating. But it's temporary. As soon as the sun comes back out, everybody stops, everybody goes back to normal. No long-term damage.
All of us had the same reaction that you did. All of us had the same reaction to what it is that you were saying there. Good Morning America flew you up there to say it doesn't have much an effect in the animals, and we don't have very much data on what it does to the animals. Like did they not talk to you before flying you up?
They did talk to me, but that's what I like about Good Morning America. They don't force me to sensationalize things. Okay, that they give me a strong platform to make people understand. Listen, a lot of this isn't as sensationalized as people want it to be. Yes, there are some changes. There are some things you could do with your pets. For instance, I told people, you know, keep your pets inside, turn on the lights, turn on the music. It keeps them calm, because there could be a little anxiety associated with animals when this happens, but not any more anxiety than, let's say, when there's a big storm coming. A big storm comes, can block out the sun, becomes dark, becomes colder. Animals get a little tense with that. But again, this is just a few minutes. What are you doing, Cody? What is going on there?
No, don't pay any attention to them. This is the part that I want to ask you, though, and I want an honest answer from you. In the pre-interview, when you told them, I don't have anything that's interesting, did they say you're going to need to jazz that up a little bit? Or in the pre-interview, did you know you didn't have anything, but you want the limo and the trip to New York, so you then jazzed it up a little bit and told them, well, I can talk about that. I'll give you 2 minutes of magic.
No, I gave her exactly what I just told you. And she said, that's great. You know, they just wanted the facts. And listen, I think it's really important. We sensationalize too much of this stuff. We try to make mountains out of molehills. Yes, there are probably some behavioral changes. And I'm sure some zoos, a lot of scientists are out there taking a lot of notes and doing a lot of research on these animals during this eclipse. So maybe we learned something. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe a lot of animals did change their behaviors. My gut tells me that's probably not going to happen. I was allowed to be honest on the show, and hopefully people learn that. You know, people just understood what it is. And I could draw that analogy to like a jet lag, and people love that analogy. They said, oh, you know, I can relate to that. Yeah, I get off a plane and I feel like I should be asleep yet. It's sunny outside, and you kind of readjust. But if it becomes dark 5 minutes after that, you go to sleep, and it's not a problem.
I'm with Dan on this. It's a lot of money to spend for a couple of facts. I mean,
well, you wouldn't spend any money for any facts.
Never.
You are allergic to all forms of facts. Let's play some video here for Ron Magill. I've got, this is not uncommon for some reason in Florida. We've got an alligator inside an 18-foot-long Burmese python. It was captured here in Florida. The researchers cut open its belly, and they found in an 18-foot-long Burmese python a 5-foot-long alligator inside. This seems crazy to me. Ron, you're unsurprised.
No, not surprised at all. I mean, that's a 5-foot alligator is not that large. That's a pretty large python. An alligator is pretty long and cylindrical in shape, so it's pretty easy to swallow. This is an ongoing...
The miracle of childbirth right now on the screen.
Yeah, well, kind of that way. You know, these snakes can open their mouths up to 3 times the diameter of the fattest part of their body, which enables them to swallow some massive animals. You know, I've seen an anaconda swallow a small cow. I mean, think about this, a small flipping cow. So these animals are well accustomed to doing that. When they eat an animal that large, they can go weeks, even months without having to eat again. So snakes are very capable of doing that. But on the flip side, they don't show you the shots of the alligators eating the pythons too. These are the new eternal enemies of the Everglades. Apex predators that are eating each other. But I wouldn't look at it as like, oh my gosh, the pythons are eating all the alligators. That's not the case.
Can a python break down an alligator that size? Like it can actually digest it and break it down and get through like the crocodile's scales or skin or whatever it's called?
Absolutely. The enzymes, the stomach enzymes of these reptiles are incredibly strong. They can burn down a lot. They'll pass out things. What they usually don't break down is a lot of hair. So since alligators don't have a lot of hair, they don't have to worry about that. And there'll probably be some of the bones, the scutes and the skin that may still come out, but they'll utilize most of that animal and get some good nutrition out of it.
Is there any thing that can be eaten here so gluttonously? Because I'm surprised how intact the alligator looks inside of the python. It hasn't been digested at all. I expect something to be masticated. I expect something to be in bits and pieces. This looks like a freshly encased alligator. Is there anything that a snake could eat so gluttonously that it will then die because it's overeaten?
Rarely will it die because of it, but often they will regurgitate if it's overeaten. That is something that commonly happens. Death occurs if they swallow the animal the wrong way and there's a perforation in the intestine or some kind of piercing that causes an internal, toxic leak into the internal system that will kill the animal. But they don't eat so much that they say, oh my God, I'm going to die because nothing ruptures. They just regurgitate it. That has happened quite often, where a snake will try to eat something that's just a little too big and all of a sudden has this massive regurgitation. And the animal comes out whole. Understand, snakes don't chew their food. The skull of a snake is really independent jaws. There's independent lines of teeth on the top of the mouth, and they all work independently like little hands, pulling in the prey species little by little, and they always eat it head first. You will watch a snake when it eats, it positions itself to look for the snout, the mouth of the prey item, and it eats head first because they know then the arms can slide back and go right against the body, and they can swallow it that way. If they try to swallow tail first, they're never successful.
Ron, I'm going to read you a headline here. Mountain lion that killed man and injured his brother is euthanized in California. Do you agree with or disagree with the idea of almost automatically euthanizing wild animals that harm or kill people?
Well, Greg, this is going to be hard for me to say and probably hard for other people to understand. But at the end of the day, we can never, ever put the priority of an animal life against that of a human life. Unfortunately, this cat has demonstrated that it will go after human beings, and unless they can find some kind of sanctuary for it or something like that, unfortunately, I agree with the euthanasia because there are people in those mountains that hike, that jog. We have a cat that has now demonstrated it can do this. I feel terrible that it happened, but at the end of the day, this cat, fool me once, shame on you, fool me twice, shame on me. This cat has gotten a taste of something that could pose a potential danger to human beings, and we have a responsibility to protect people. So I don't believe in the automatic, oh my gosh, we got, the thing I worry about is like sometimes there's alligator encounters and they say, oh no, we got to kill all the alligators now. And they kill a bunch of alligators trying to think they're going to get the one that made the attack. I think that's wrong. But if they can prove that you have this one animal and they can know it's that animal that has done this, I do believe that animal has to be removed from the environment. Again, it's not fair to the animal, but we can never prioritize an animal's life in front of a human's life. That's just not the right thing.
But what if this animal tasted human blood and flesh and then said, you know what? I don't like the taste of this. I'm never going to do it again.
And that's a great point, Billy, because that's usually what happens with many of these alligator attacks. They really are alligator encounters. Like I say, the same thing with sharks. Okay, they bite. They come after instinct. You hear something splashing in the water, they think it may be a raccoon. They think it may be a fish. They may be a possum, and they bite into it, and they realize this is not what I thought. And that's why so many people, when you have shark bites, get out of the water with just that. Because I can promise you, that shark was headstrong on killing and eating that person would never have gotten out of the water. Same thing with a lot of alligators, and a lot of times that people find people dead in the water from alligators because they've been drowned, not because they've been eaten. Even though there are exceptions. I understand there are exceptions. We've had alligators that have consumed human beings. Those alligators need to get out of the system.
Ron, good seeing you. Always nice seeing you. Thank you, sir.
All right, guys. Have a great week.
Looks good on the range, Scott.
He typically does.
On the putting green, not so much, though, bending over to get the ball.
Good analysis from
He looks
Stugotz.
extra good.
Tiger Woods standing over a tee looks pretty good.
Yeah, but everyone's worried about his health, and I'm telling you, he looks as healthy as he
All
can
right.
look at this
Scott,
point of his career.
It seems like for the last several years, it's nice to see you, Scott. It seems like for the last several years, Stugotz wants to talk himself into. Tiger can do it on this course because I've seen him do it on this course. This is the one course that he would do it on.
5 times.
Can
man.
we please get old Tiger, not just an old Tiger, but the used to be Tiger? The answer's no, right? The answer's no, right, Scott?
It's so hard to say it's no because I've known him forever and it was always don't bet against me. But I mean, Dan, he can't finish rounds, man. Like we haven't seen him complete rounds because his body has betrayed him to the point that he can't finish rounds. So finishing 4 rounds and being lower than everyone else out here feels like it's a bridge too far. So maybe that's a nicer way of saying he can't, but I don't know how he can.
Scott, I have talked to you guys who know about this stuff better than me for a long, long time, and you've always told me that the reason Tiger was unlikely to ever catch Jack Nicklaus is because the body's going to break down on him. The idea that he would have the longevity, we were just talking about this with Major League pitchers. The body is not meant to do that often without breaking down. The number of golfers who have back problems because that's not a natural thing to do that often without your body breaking down. You have always been on the record as saying it's unlikely that Tiger's going to catch him for this reason, for what's exactly has happened, minus, the wife taking the golf club to the automobile.
And the car accident.
Well, the back is fused together, and he won it after his back was fused together, which seemed unlikely, if not impossible. And then it turned out it wasn't. But the car accident that Stugotz mentions as well, I mean, it could have killed him. And so you have a combination of a man with a fused back who's gone through a myriad of surgeries as well on his knees, and then an accident. And as we've often said, and anyone that's ever been here could tell you that the topography of this particular place, which yes, he knows so well and has played so well here, the hills it's hard to walk it, let alone play it. So I don't know, man. Like, you come here and you talk yourself into it for sure, and all it would take is one birdie on the par 5 second hole to go, here we go. But it's a lot to ask, man.
But he's not having sex, Scott. I mean,
there you go.
Yeah.
That's a personal choice,
Yeah.
A personal choice. But yeah, I guess he's locked in,
right.
Laser focus.
Yeah,
no sex.
Neither am I, and it hasn't helped my game at all. I got to.
I thought about that. That felt like really low hanging fruit, so I passed.
Second straight day he's made that joke. It's one of his go-to jokes.
For me, it's not a personal choice, though. I mean,
it's the most wonderful time of the year for Scott Van Pelt and Stugotz. ESPN is broadcasting the Masters for its 17th year. It live play airs on Thursday, Friday from 3 to 7:30 Eastern. SVP will be at the desk at Augusta. He'll be calling the 17th and 18th holes. He'll also be anchoring SportsCenter, as he does better than anybody. Your friend Ernie Johnson likes to talk about having a get-to job, not a got-to job.
Yep.
This week, more than any other time of year for you, is a get-to job?
Without question. And I've told this story a lot since I had kids. They often say, Dad, you have to go to work. And I always say I get to go to work. And I just want them to understand the distinction and understand that I'm lucky to do something I'm grateful to do. This week, more than any other, without question, it's a place, Dan, where I've come for a long, long time. And, I have friends here at the club that I see every year. And, there's a gentleman named Tony who's been, working at the club for years. I saw him and he introduced me to his nephew who plays football at Augusta State. And it's like, I knew your dad before his hair was gray. And when I had some, and there's something about it. And I get that if you haven't been here, you can roll your eyes at it. But everyone's sort of in a good mood. Everyone's on their best behavior. All the players love it. They revere the place. I've been grateful to call it. I owe my career to it largely, having met Tiger and having him do what he did in '97 and have the opportunity to talk to him about it afterwards and maybe get on the radar of ESPN or whatever. So I don't know. It invites me to be reflective. It invites me to be nostalgic. And gratitude is something I try to put out in the universe all the time. I don't always do a great job of it, but it's really easy to do that this week.
Do you appreciate it even more with age than you did 5 or 10 years ago?
No question, Dan. I think, look, what do they say? Perspective is something you either have or you get. And over time, I told somebody not long ago when they asked me about doing this, at some point you wake up and you realize you're on the back nine of your life, and certainly on the back nine of a career. And I don't mean that this is over tomorrow. I mean, I hope to continue to do this for some period of time. But undoubtedly, you think back and you go, 97, I was, what was it, 30 years old, 31 years old. Well, now I'm in my late 50s. And I don't know. I don't know if you feel this way, Dan. I don't know how the hell I got here, but here I am. And the end of the runway doesn't feel like it's immediate, but you're getting there. And so undoubtedly coming here and thinking, how long do you get to do this get to job? I don't know, but I'm here right now. And so you just try to be present in that and be grateful in that, because at some point I won't. And I try not to think a ton about that, but absolutely age makes you more aware of and present in the present.
Do you think you'll still be doing this when the next Eclipse comes around in 2045, I believe?
If it happens, I got these cool little glasses that they gave us, so I am well equipped for that. Hell no. I just hope I'm alive, man. It was wild. Like literally, you got people all across the country, and here our little Masters goggles looking up at the eclipse. No, I'll be long gone by then.
You'll probably be able to sell those though, even if you aren't around in 20. Like those
I'll buy
are
them.
worth something.
What's the bid?
I'll buy
What's
them.
the bid?
I'll give you 25, right? What?
Whoa.
200?
201.
No,
201.
That's about what I paid for the taste of the Masters on Gold Belly.
Keep going.
Yeah.
We're at 201. Do I hear 202?
Are you familiar with it? So I've never had the privilege of going to Augusta for this. I make the mistake of putting in my last name on the lottery, and I think that always just comes back to bite me. But I'm doing the Taste of the Masters. They finally licensed this the Masters name to Gold Belly, and it allows you to partake in some of the fare that everyone raves about. And instead of doing this on my own and trying to rig a Masters menu, I can actually have the legitimate Augusta egg salad that everyone raves about. So I got 24 ounces of egg salad, 24 ounces of pimento cheese, the pork barbecue, the chips. I have these pecan caramel popcorn things that I've heard people rave about. Out of the Augusta menu, when you partake in the fare, what is your favorite thing?
It's not on the menu. I hate to say.
Oh,
I hate
boy.
to say you didn't get it. It's there's a chicken. It seems like maybe it wouldn't travel. It's just a chicken sandwich, and it's just a piece of fried chicken on a bun. And I haven't had one yet. It's only Tuesday, but by the end of the week, we're double digits for sure. I'd say what the pecan caramel popcorn is. 6, what is that? 6 bags of that? What's 6 what? What's
Yeah,
that?
6 different bags.
That's what caught my eye. When I saw this list, I'm like, pecan caramel. That has to be really good.
It's delicious. Look, I'm not, and this is sacrilege, I get, but I'm allowed to say as an adult that I'm not a fan of the pimento cheese. I'm allowed to say that.
Jessica, is he allowed to say that?
No, you're not.
Jessica, he's not allowed to say
He
that.
said it.
He's
So what are you
not
going to do? He
allowed
said it.
to
He said
say
it.
that.
He said it.
What? How? What? I'm not. I have no agency over what I eat.
No.
Okay.
No.
They're delish. They're just fantastic. I don't. It's not my thing.
Eat a crunch. Put some potato chips on it next time.
Andy North takes the chicken, puts it in the middle of pimento cheese. He goes hybrid. That's his collab, is the chicken pimento cheese, which he's a fan of. I'm not. It's not my thing.
Masters Week, Dano.
Well, he's got some
Pimento sandwiches.
I don't know what his most controversial food take is, but you posted a photo on Twitter last week of a grocery store checkout aisle. You had nine family-sized bags of Nerds candy. This seems deeply unhealthy. And it looked like 3 bags, at least 3, of Sour Patch Kids. Nerds are a controversial candy. Is this your favorite?
No, I'm a sweet tart guy for life, but this nerd cluster, I don't know. My guy Stanford Steve just threw them in front of me one day and just said, "Don't do it." And so naturally, like, I'm one of those cavemen guys that all you have to do to get me to do something is say you won't do it, right? And so I open up the Nerds, handful of them, chew. Oh, this is a problem. They're really, It's a combination. It's a texture thing. It's a crunch thing. It's a sour sweet thing. The Nerds, just to be clear, that picture, I wasn't buying that. That right there is the, like, at the point of sale deal, right where you're walking at the checkout. I didn't buy all those Nerds.
Is there a bigger nerd cluster than Stanford?
No. That's a good point. That's a good call. But I didn't buy all of that. I had just one little. I was walking through the grocery store, and it was like a siren song. I saw them, and I walked over to them like, "Don't buy all the Nerds," and I didn't. I was proud of myself.
I don't mean for this to sound too paternal, but I am proud of you in general, even though I'm younger than you. Just seeing you carve out your own thing and your own way at ESPN at a time that it can be difficult to do such a thing.
He didn't carve out the master, just so we're clear.
That's correct, but he carved out a great gig that allows him to spend this week doing something that he loves to do and being paid for it. Your first big national gig was the Golf Channel. You still, I'm reading here, it's reported that you've got a Post-it note on your desk from the end of your time at the Golf Channel, which reads, quote, "I'll never work at ESPN," end quote.
That's right.
Why is that there, and why did you have the feeling that you would never work at ESPN?
So I worked with this producer at the Golf Channel who had come from ESPN. He was sort of this legendary curmudgeon named Lee Rosenblatt. Everyone called him Nate. I don't know why everyone called him Nate, but they called him Nate. And Nate said to me, I just realized as I said that, why the hell they call him Nate? I have no effing idea.
His name was Lee.
No, nickname Nate.
Wow.
How's that work? Anyway,
nickname,
Nate told me exactly what is the correct question. I have no idea. Nate. Anyway, he says to me pretty early on at the Golf Channel, he's like, "You're gonna go work at ESPN someday," and I'm like, "I'm not gonna work at ESPN." He's like, "I'll bet you $100." And so I wrote, "I'll never work at ESPN," signed it. And I obviously lost that bet. And I keep it, Dan, as a reminder to myself, don't say the thing you won't do. I've done it for 20 some odd years now. And I've explained this, and here's the truth. It was imposter syndrome that I had at the Golf Channel. I didn't go to journalism school. I just snuck through this back door. I met Tiger Woods, and they put me on TV. And I just kept thinking, ESPN would never want me. Well, so saying I would never do it was like this preemptive thing, like, right? Like, oh, I wouldn't date this beautiful woman, as if that was my choice, right? It was me saying I wouldn't do this thing. And I keep it just as this reminder to myself, well, actually I have, and I hope I've done it well enough that I'm here at Augusta to do my job. And don't say the thing you won't do in life, whatever it might be. And literally, I keep it on my desk, and it sits there staring at me. It's old. It's dated. It's from 1996. But it's good. It's good to have that sort of rudder for yourself. And I think of it often. And I've changed some of the things I've done. I've taken on different challenges throughout time, and I try to remind myself not to just get stuck in a lane, which I think can happen to all of us if we're not willing to do the thing we think we aren't good enough to do.
Scott, it's gambling time. Give us some flyers, because it's hard to bet against Scotty Scheffler. He's had a 2-year run. He's won this event. It's hard to bet against him. He's the favorite. But give us some guys that a lot of people really aren't talking about headed into Thursday.
I like my guy Keith Mitchell. He's a dog. He's a Georgia guy. He could go low here, and wouldn't surprise me a little bit. My colleague, Curtis Strange, on our media call the other day, said, "I like that Oberg guy." I'm like, you like the 9th ranked player in the world as a dark horse? Like, hey, keep an eye on UConn in the tournament. They might be onto something. I'm trying to think of other people. Like, look, and I'm not going to hit you with a Curtis, but like, Spieth hasn't played well. I'd be shocked if he doesn't play well here this week. Corey Connors is a guy that last year had a chance to break through and win a major championship. Again, I'm not talking about somebody outside of the top 100 in the world, but you might not hear his name mentioned. And I think Connors is a guy that could absolutely play well here. Are you talking like top 20s here? Or are you talking win?
He just wants money.
I'm looking for value, like Ricky Fowler is plus 10,000.
He just wants gambling money that you have advice. Throw him somebody who might make
Mitchell Connors are names that you're not going to hear them on our show, I'm sure, maybe on the Golf Channel, but these are guys that two guys that wouldn't surprise me at all if they played well. But the Scotty thing is this. Like, we get asked every time we come here, who do you like and why? And I just said Scotty because when he's winning on Sunday and I didn't pick him, I'm going to say, what kind of idiot wouldn't pick the best player in the world when he's just destined to be on that first page? I'm certain I would never use that word. That's far too definitive. I'd be shocked if he weren't on the first page on Sunday just because he's playing too well to not be in the mix. But there is no value there, Stugotz, as you know.
Yes.
Scott, I got to circle back for a second because it's important. When you joined ESPN, did you ever pay Nate the $100?
I did. Nate, this is great. Like, Nate's a ball buster in this way. Like, he literally, I think I might have moved to Connecticut and he was harassing me like a bill collector no, I'm not joking. He's like, you owe me $100. Like, like, what's that scene in Warrior where Hardy gets in the ring? He's like, you owe me $200 after he knocks the guy out. Like, Nate was that guy. And I'm like, you know what? I do. And it's the best check I ever wrote because I owed him the 100 and Cody, no joke. Like, here's a guy that saw something in me that I didn't see in myself. So he was like my Tony Robbins. But I don't know if Nate has ever been compared to like a self-help guy, but I think maybe he was. But I'm square with Nate, and I'm square with the universe in that way.
Scott, the Live PGA dynamic has been around Augusta before, but the PGA is very much so at an inflection point. No one really knows what the PGA might look like the next go-round. Yeah. What's the dynamic this year with so much uncertainty surrounding both of these leagues? I know there's a big format discussion with Live. The reigning champion is a Live guy. How is that permeating throughout this event?
I feel like it's a non-topic. It's amazing how that has changed in the sense that there was this very clear line in the sand. It was us against them. Jon Rahm pledged his fealty, which is not a word that is used often, but he pledged it. And then apparently his fealty costs $400 million. Mine does not cost that much. I'd have certainly not required that to abandon my fealty. And now, when the PGA Tour's commissioner went on CNBC last year and just a random day in June, I think, and is like, yeah, we're going to team up with Liv, and all the players in the PGA Tour that didn't take the money are like, come again? It just feels like the entire us versus them fight is no more. It seems that we're headed towards some conglomerate of sorts. They just have to figure out the money. So I just don't think Liv versus PGA Tour exists. When Rory, who was the Jon Snow drawing his sword ready to fight all comers, was like, we probably ought to figure this out. Like, your most staunch advocate for the fight laid down his sword. So I just don't think it's even a topic of conversation. And mostly, am I allowed to cuss?
Yep.
Sure.
It's encouraged.
People don't give a shit. I just don't think they give a shit. All they want is to see the best players play in the same event, and they get that starting Thursday. So it just doesn't feel like a topic. I mean, I have no appetite for it because once the PGA Tour is like, yeah, we're going to do this, like, it's over. It's not, but that fight feels over to me.
Stugotz just turned his computer to me where there's a big picture of Tiger Woods, and the quote from Tiger Woods is, if everything comes together, I think I can get one more.
Masters week, Dano.
One more.
Fire on it, Stugotz. You won't bet it. You won't do it.
I'm going to predict it right now. Tiger plays 4 rounds, finishes in the top 5.
Let's go.
How about that?
You can make there's
You know
value
what?
there, brother.
I'm
There's
taking it
value
one
there.
step further, Scotty. He's going to win the Masters.
Words,
Yeah.
and there it is. Words mean nothing, ladies and gentlemen. Words mean nothing. Scott, it's always good seeing you. Thank you, sir.
Hey, I want to just, I don't want to put you in a spot, but like there's been conversations about one of those sessions where we sit and talk. If we can ever figure out schedules, I'd love to do it. I have appreciation for you as a human, and I appreciate your kindness to me.
That's the name of the show.
Stugotz, I'm not talking to you. I'd love to sit with you and chat sometime about all of it, about life, about gratitude, about all of it, man. It's keep doing what you're doing. I appreciate you, brother.
Cody's in.
Thank you.
Likewise. We're going to change the name of it to one of those sessions where we sit around and talk about life.
Well, that's kind of what it is, isn't it?
That
Yes.
is what it is.
Yes.
You got it.
It's way too cumbersome for a title, though. I'm sorry.
See you, buddy. Thank you.
Be well.
Thanks, Scott.
Friends, colleagues, mentors,
Countrymen.
I'm addressing everyone in here. I was just trying to see how far I could go with that. It is time to update March Sadness. We have our Final Four, guys. Who's excited? Greg?
Yeah, I am.
Do you think you have a clue from the Greg Cody region what made the Final Four?
I don't know. I hope Lovely Cruz made it, because that's dear to my heart.
I don't even think that made the Sweet 16.
Did not.
And as I remind you, March Sadness is presented.
Your limited fake
Well, he's sad.
Romo,
It's
your
March
limited
Sadness.
fake Tony Romo is very good, Jessica.
As I remind you, March Sadness is presented by Get Your Guide. Discover over 100,000 unforgettable travel experiences in the U.S. and around the world at getyourguide.com. Wow. All right. The
Really-
song region.
Really hammer the .com there.
I mean, I'm trying to hammer everything.
Great
Stugotz.
read.
The song region. I mean, we know who made this, right? The 1 seed. It's the favorite in the whole tournament. The 1 seed from the song region, Puka Nakua.
His name is Cooper, good at running curls. But when his hammy got a tear, he saw Puka standing there.
And we wonder now, who will that go up against? Well, the song region is going up against the region of death. And who made it? A 16 seed made it to the Final Four, and it's Roy as the bear.
It's excellent. I've got to be honest. Roy Bellamy, the costume that he ended up putting together, very sparse. It's a cigarette, it's a backward cap, and it's an apron, and yet he pulls off looking like somebody who would be working in the kitchen of the bear.
So it's very exciting to see who will make the final from those two. In the other matchup, we have, out of the Greg Cody region, let's see. It's Nice Hat.
Can't trade Marino.
Nice
30 years
hat.
ago,
Nice hat, Zaslow.
It's what he's most known for. It's not like I'm holding on to it.
Do you remember what Scott Mitchell looked like in that next game after Marino
They
got
were
hurt?
9-2. They were 9-2.
Amazing.
And then they lost their last 5 and missed the playoffs.
Nice
They
hat.
were 9-2. But it's Marino.
Nice
And then the
hat.
next time we saw Marino, after Greg Cody traded him, he threw for 5 touchdowns.
Nice
and he was
hat.
Dan the Man on the cover of
Tackling
Sports
him.
Illustrated. You can't trade Marino.
Nice hat.
So that makes our Final Four.
Deserving. I mean,
And it is going against the club region. Who do you guys think made it here? We had I Get Bitches left
Lucy.
and right, and
It's
we
gotta
had
be Lucy.
You fat piece of bleep.
So just lowest common denominator.
That's right.
Yep.
And
I'm
the winner.
guessing Lucy is going to be the winner.
And the winner, reaching the Final Four, 8 seed.
I was getting bitches left and right.
We need Lucy to win as a consolation prize for Caitlin Clark and Iowa losing.
She's going to
because
come in second place.
You could just rename all of March Sadness Lucy Rodine.
This feels like Puka Nakua versus Nice Hat to me.
Greg, you had a
An all
50%
Greg
chance.
final.
Yeah.
I like it.
Her sadness is profound, right? Lucy, we have not been able to check in with her this week. Is she broken? Is she taking leave just because she's so sad?
Yeah, I think so. No, I do think she'll be back tomorrow. But I mean, devastating 2 years for Lucy. Losing in the championship back to back. It's very Buffalo Bills of the Iowa Hawkeyes. Really.
except they did it 4 times.
I know. Imagine if Lucy had to go through this 2 more times. Oh my God.
Stugotz is getting mad at many of the people who have commentary about Caitlin Clark that's less than positive about her professional chances, the UConn women who are doing analysis, and this is part of what it is that you get. Caleb Williams is getting it. Everyone who's going to come into a league with expectations is going to have his or her critics.
Really, what I'm upset about is just criticizing Caitlin in general for what she's done for the game and pointing out, hey, I have more rings. Leave that to me. Leave that to the media. Do you want your game to grow or do you not? No, I did not go to my television set when Breanna Stewart was winning 4 championships with UConn. But somehow Caitlin Clark got me there for an
Kinda
Elite
telling
Eight
on
game.
yourself.
She got me there. I am. But she got me there for an Elite Eight game. She got me and my family there for a semifinal game. And she got me and my wife sitting around 3 o'clock on Sunday afternoon watching a women's college basketball game. She should be applauded for that. And I don't understand.
She's been plenty applauded for that.
Dawn Staley had to go out of her way because she knows some of the blowback that Caitlin Clark is getting from other players. And so she had to go out of her way while she's hoisting the trophy to say, thank you to Caitlin Clark for being one of the GOATs. I just don't get it. Do you want your sport to grow or not? And who cares how it grows or who's the reason that it grows? It grew because of Caitlin Clark. It's going to continue to grow because of what Caitlin Clark did this year.
Did you listen to Diana Taurasi's full comments?
Let's play them here for Stugotz.
Right? When the college guys come out, they're waiting for them. I mean, Camilla's coming, Caitlin's coming. There's more than just that are coming. What will the league have in store for them when they get there?
Look, SVP, reality is coming.
Okay.
There's levels to this thing, and that's just life. We all went through it.
Of course.
And you see it on the NBA side, and you're going to see it on this side, where, you look superhuman playing against 18-year-olds, but you're going to come with some grown women that have been playing professional basketball for a long time. Not saying that it's not going to translate, because when you're great at what you do, you're just going to get better. But there is going to be a transition period where you're going to have to give yourself some grace as a rookie. And, it might take a little bit longer for some people.
Right on. That's
projecting what she'll be once she gets to the WNBA is different than criticizing her for what she did in college. So I'm not upset at people who are saying, hey,
but
she
who
might
did that? How many people were doing that?
There were a bunch of people saying, why is she getting...
Brianna Stewart said you have to win a ring to be the GOAT or something. And Brianna Stewart has 4 championships.
But,
so, yeah, I mean, isn't that your whole take?
Well, that's my take, and I'm saying leave that take to me. Brianna Stewart, you don't need to go there, okay? That's what I'm trying to say. I mean,
that you're entitled to say it, but
it should come from me. It should not come from Brianna Stewart. Her game grew. Does she care about the game?
Okay. What a pivot from Stugotz.
Is she upset about the fact that she's not the one that grew it the way Caitlin Clark did?
Perhaps that could be part of what is tinged here is that Caitlin Clark is getting something that no one in the history of the sport has gotten, and other players in the sport might consider themselves worthy of that distinction. I just think it's fairly amazing that you feel like you're entitled to the take, but 4-time champion Brianna Stewart should stay out of this discussion.
I think there's an element of players don't want to be told that what they did didn't matter because people weren't paying attention. And I think that Caitlin Clark's rise, we need to put it in context of what is happening right now across all of college sports, which is now players are allowed to make endorsement deals and players are allowed to monetize themselves. And I think her style of play is a huge reason why she's hugely popular, and she shoots 3-pointers from the logo and they go in, and she has the all-time scoring record. She's an incredibly exciting player to watch. The way that she plays, people are mesmerized by. But I think there's also an element of we don't have to tiptoe around the fact that she is a moneymaker now. She can actually make that money, and it catapults her into a level of stardom that previously players were not able to do because of the dumb NCAA and its dumb rules.
I do understand, though, why any of the people who had less press attention but comparable skills would be, in whatever ways they're contaminated, their viewpoint is contaminated by whatever their allegiances are. It can be as simple as you went to UConn and your coverage is going to be UConn biased and intensive. I can understand any previous pioneer, a Diana Taurasi, looking at how hard they had it, and maybe not all of them would show great grace in those circumstances, seeing that Caitlin Clark has dominated getting the fruits of everybody's labor, right? Because this is the culmination. This moment is the culmination of a lot of work that predates Caitlin Clark before all of this attention got here, and some other people might feel like they're entitled to it.
And Caitlin hasn't even said all, she's not done anything wrong. She has been very gracious about all of it and recognizing the past legends and stuff. I think what's very exciting about all of this is that you can tune in and see how Caitlin Clark does in the WNBA in like a month, because the draft is next week. And guess what? Diana Taurasi's team, the Phoenix Mercury, they're already marketing their game against the Fever as the rookie versus the GOAT. So this is all great marketing for the W. Diana Taurasi knows what she's doing, and she doesn't care if you call her a hater, because that is her whole vibe. And if you're just finding out who she is, go look up some highlights. She's she's fun to watch too.
I hope Clark puts 50 up on her.
That's sports.
This is the Dan Le Batard Show with the Stugotz podcast.